introduce you to Brian Green, our senior programmer and newest member of our team. So welcome, Brian.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Let's start with history, since again it is technically your first day.
Yes, yes.
So jumping you into it.
Yes, exactly. I wouldn't have it any other way. I worked on a game called Meridian 59 for several years. It was a hardcore PvP game. One of the earliest MMOs, kind of a transition between a lot of the earlier MMOs, like services like AOL or Genie.
Oh, wow.
And before, it was the first game that actually had a monthly subscription-based business model. So I started working on it in '98. And then in 2000, I actually acquired the rights to the game from 3DO before they went bankrupt, and I ran that until 2009.
And what was the name of your company?
Near Dust Studios.
Okay. And what will you be working on for us?
I have a wide variety of experience in the background. So, I'm here primarily as a programmer, but obviously I have a lot of knowledge about server architecture, server maintenance, server administration. I'm also going to help, obviously, with the design. I have a lot of experience in balancing PvP combat.
Gotcha. And probably tasking yourself if I run a company.
Right, yes.
So. Also, I heard that you were a blogger and did some other things.
Yeah. I actually have a blog that's been running for almost a decade now, I guess, and it'll be this year, at psychochild.org. I'm known online as Psychochild, mostly because my given name, Brian Green, is so common. So if you search for Brian Green, you'll probably find the physicist that spells his name with an E, but if you look up Psychochild, you'll probably find mostly information about me.
Okay. Working on Meridian 59 and doing programming for that, did you end up, I guess, facing any good and then also bad ramifications for some of the choices that you made in programming?
Well, PvP tends to be a very contentious issue. People are looking for any advantage they can get, really. And so, you make a change that's good for the long-term benefit of the game. Like one example I usually talk about is you could join different political factions, and players could join and leave factions freely. But people tend to kind of congregate in one faction, and what we wanted people to kind of spread out, so there'd be more reason to fight each other. Gotcha. So I added a system where if you attacked a person that was in the same faction as you, you'd get kicked out of the faction. And that tended, for the people that just wanted to go and kill people, but they still wanted to keep the benefits of being in the faction, they tend to not really like that very much. That's probably one of the least popular changes I made. The flip side of that is, I did a lot of combat balancing. Probably the most interesting thing I did that people liked was I changed it so that what we call pure mages, it would basically focus mostly on doing magic attack. It used to be a very expensive, very hard advanced type of class. I changed it so it was much easier to do that. Instead of relying on weapons, they could actually cast a spell that would work as a weapon. And a lot of people really appreciate that change.
Good. Speaking of all of this sort of similar genre stuff, what games do you play for fun?
For MMOs, I mostly play Dungeons & Dragons online. I'm playing with my significant other. I actually met her in university playing Dungeons & Dragons, the tabletop paper game. So I was playing a dwarven fighter berserker, and she was playing an elven thief, so it wasn't exactly love at first sight. But
she fell in love with your beard over time?
Yeah, eventually, yes. I play in a couple static groups in Dungeons & Dragons online, a couple, 3 times a week. Single-player games, game I played most recently is Bioshock Infinite. I haven't played the DLC yet, so I'm looking forward to do that once I'm kind of settled in here.
Gotcha. Yes, I've played the DLC. There's a couple expansions on that right now.
Yeah.
The basic DLC.
Right.
And talking about Bioshock, we've had a conversation about this before, but just for the community, you've spoken, I guess, about people that have more interest in just going through for the combat, and then people that are in it for the story.
Right.
Can you expand on that some more, and then possibly talk about how the balance of story and actual gameplay is going to work?
Well, I think one of the important things, and Bioshock Infinite is probably a good example of this in single-player games, is that there's really 2 stories in the game. There's the story the developer wants to tell, and there's the story that the players experience. I think that's really sharply expressed in MMOs, where you can have writers that wonderful writers that create a lot of wonderful backstory. They give a lot of context, but once you're in the game, the quest NPC doesn't necessarily engage you as much as, hey, remember that time when we were fighting that guy and he almost got us dead, but then our friend came on and saved us. That's the player story. That's the thing that I think it really interests them. I think that Bioshock Infinite experienced a little bit of that, where a lot of people seem to kind of lament, Booker seems a very violent person, and obviously it's a shooter, so I mean, violence there's going to be some violence there, but really, like some people could lament it. Well, I wanted to spend more time looking at the scenery. And it's like you could. but you could clear a location of enemies and spend some time in the scenery. You were going to have necessarily a lot of people standing around, but that was kind of going along with the developer story. And so the way I played, I spent a lot of time looking around the scenery. I spent a lot of time kind of looking in nooks and crannies. Whereas another person might have the experience that they just bolt right through the game, and again, some of your decisions are going to be influenced by the way you want to play the game and influenced by what the story the developers tell.
Anything else you think the community should know, or do you feel comfortable with what you've shared?
I'm just really excited about this. I was an avid player of Dark Age of Camelot before I actually acquired the rights to Meridian 59 from 3DO. And basically the reason I stopped playing is I had to spend all my time working on Meridian 59. But I was a big fan of. I played on Midgard side, so I'm sure some people might hate me for that.
Well, we'll hear more hopefully from Brian, and welcome him to the team from all of you.
Thank you very much.